Hello and welcome back to AAT's podcast number 8 with myself, Addy of AddiBiotics.
And Aiden.
Good afternoon, Aiden.
Good afternoon, Addy.
How are you?
Not bad, my friend. How are you today?
Yeah, not bad. How's your week been?
Exhausting.
Other feelings?
Work.
Productive.
Gym, work. And more
Same
work.
I know the feeling as well. I've had a really good productive
Oh, you
week
know
as
what
well.
it's like. Adulting,
Yes.
working, slaving, and everything else.
In between.
In between.
In
yes.
between, yeah. In between.
In between.
Yeah. So, as always, we talk on this movie. On this podcast, we talk about good action movies. We talk about good movies that we liked back in the 80s and the nostalgia era, call it whatever you like. And today we're going to be talking about we've already covered a Stallone movie. Yeah, we covered Sylvester Stallone's movie.
Yes, we have. And now we are doing
a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
And eventually we are going to be talking about the legendary Schwarzenegger-Stallone rivalry.
Yes. So it does make sense that
Yes.
we actually talk about that because we've actually spoken about both of them.
We have, because to be honest with you, them two guys in the 80s were just the two top
They
dogs.
made the 80s.
They did. They were one of the few people who had made the 80s. You had obviously Stallone racking up numbers playing Rocky and Rambo. You had in the whole decade of the 80s, Stallone did the first 3 Rambo movies.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you had Arnold, being launched as the Terminator in 1984 is when he did 84 when he did the first Terminator movie. And then you also had Bruce Willis coming along the way from TV, because I'm not sure if you knew this, but did you know Bruce Willis started off in a TV series?
Yes, I did.
What was the name of the series?
Was it Moonlight?
Yes.
Because you
now here's another one. This you're never going to believe. Bruce Willis actually got his start on the hit TV series Miami Vice.
Bruce Willis?
Bruce Willis. I couldn't believe it when I saw it for the first time, and then...
Yeah, you got the first reaction.
Yes. So 0.1 to Addy.
And, I didn't know there was a score sheet.
Yeah, well, don't worry, we'll eventually get the score sheet.
Just put it on here.
Yeah, we should do that. Shouldn't we, bro?
Should do. Put it on here. The people will know what it's. People know who's winning and losing. No, there's no winners or losers here.
Yeah, we're all equal here in Biotic Universe.
We're all winners.
Yeah. So basically, before we get into the movie that we're going to be talking about, Bruce Willis actually was a bartender in New York City. And Don Johnson, who was the star of Miami Vice, who played the legendary character Sonny Crockett, he used to go there and party. And he met Bruce Willis there. And Bruce Willis had a great sense of humor. He would tell great stories. And he goes, I want to be an actor. He goes, oh, do you? Then he rang up the...
It did help that he was a good-looking chap as well.
He was, yeah. And Don Johnson rang the producers and said, look, can you fly this guy out and give him a guest star on one of the episodes? He goes, all right, fine, we'll bring him down. They met him, he did a screen test, and ever since then they've been really good friends, Bruce Willis and Don Johnson. So he basically...
Right place, right time.
Yeah, he does. And here's another reaction. Did you know Bruce Willis had...
Let's see if you get the reaction first.
Oh, I'm going to get it.
Right.
You don't have to ask me. I'm going to get this reaction at you.
Right.
Did you know Bruce Willis had an album out in the 80s? He was a singer.
Oh, God.
Yes, got the reaction. He did. It was called The Return of Bruno. That's what he was known as, Bruno.
Bruno.
That's how Don Johnson knew who he was. He knew him as Bruno.
Just Bruno.
Bruno, yeah. Not Bruno Willis, but Bruno was one of the nicknames everybody had for him. He was Bruno the bartender back then.
That was his musician name,
Yeah,
Bruno.
yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
like I said, yeah, so go back...
Not saying I'm a big fan of
labeling, yeah.
Yeah, Bruno.
So what happened was as we were mentioning, obviously, Stallone, Schwarzenegger created the action era of the 80s because it was all about being the big guy, carrying the big gun, killing, having the most big body
Having the
count.
most kill streaks.
Kill streaks, yeah. And Arnold mentioned that a lot as well in quite a lot of his interviews. And did you also notice, before the name of the title would be the name of the action star on top of the poster on the VHS. I mean, obviously we came from the VHS
Yeah,
era.
VHS era.
Oh, they were
yeah,
pains,
and
they
cassette tape era.
Yeah, they were pains. It was like having to spend an hour rewinding something.
You had to put... I know we're going off topic here, but one thing I remember from my childhood is when you wanted to tape a film or a TV show, for instance, you had to pause it
Yes.
at the right moment, the last thing that was recorded on that tape.
Yes.
So you don't record over that.
Yes, and you always
last
had to.
recording.
You always had to put like a little piece of
Oh
sellotape
my
over it.
gosh,
It's
it's
easy off.
so frustrating.
Oh, it was, but at least nowadays, thankfully, the technology has improved over time.
Yeah, it's easier now.
VHS is a dead era, unfortunately.
Oh no.
Yeah. So the movie we're going to be talking about today, it's about a tough Russian police officer who, this was set during Soviet Union era Russia, and then he's traveling. He's trying to track down his partner's killer, who's also the biggest criminal in Russia, and he fleds over to the US, and he's got no choice but to go over there and get him. And he's teamed up with in the city of Chicago. He's teamed up with a bit of a joke for a police officer.
Yeah, he's a bit cocky, a bit arrogant.
Yeah. And he doesn't. It's like a clash of cultures, a clash of customs, a clash of identities, and it's like
Tango with Cash in a
it is
clash of different worlds, different ways of thinking.
But this was definitely you hit the nail on the head there, bro, when you were talking about the different worlds. Because if you look at it, you got one guy from one end of the planet meeting the guy from the other end of the planet.
Yeah, east and west.
East and west, yeah. And again, the movie starred Arnold Schwarzenegger and James Belushi, and the movie was called Red Heat.
Oh, and another thing, it was also communism and capitalism.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, that was the other two things that were clashing in with each other.
You may continue.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously, yeah. So Arnold in the movie, Schwarzenegger plays a tough Russian cop called Ivan Danko, and he's the captain of the police force. And
I love those names.
Those are pretty cool names because think about it, you had Ivan Danko, you had Ivan Drago. I wonder if them two ever met during the time.
Oh, imagine.
Could you imagine that? Well, actually, Dolph Lundgren has been good friends with Arnold for over 35 years anyway.
Oh, well, there you go.
And because think about it, they did the Expendables movies together.
Yep, they did.
And they did
Expendables 2.
And 3. That's when they actually had scenes together, but not in the first one.
Yeah, was it in Dolph Lundgren? Was it in the first one?
No, he was.
Oh, God, it was such a long time ago. I can't remember. 2010.
Yeah, actually, it was 2010. They did the first Expendables movie, and that brought a lot of nostalgia back to the screen.
80s came back live and kicking there, didn't it?
Well, you had every action star in the 80s. That the only ones
Jean-Claude.
No, Van Damme came back in part 2.
Yeah.
So did Chuck Norris. Yeah. One I was disappointed with. They didn't bring in Steven Seagal or Kurt Russell.
Still time, my friend.
Time. Well, they are planning
Number 4.
Yeah, can't wait. So in this movie, obviously, you have Arnold playing this tough Russian police officer, and they asked him, "Why did you want to play this officer?" He goes, "Obviously, during that time, there was the Cold War era with Russia and the US, and he goes, I want to play a Soviet police officer who can show that he can do some good." And I watched an interview with Arnold who was saying that, and he's standing there with a big, thick cigar. Like always, you can't miss Arnold without the cigars.
He always has cigars. Every
always
time
has the cigars.
He always has to have a cigar.
They said that he goes through cigars like they're chocolate bars. That's how much he loves the cigars. And they're like these thick cigars about that big, and like they cost over... well, I remember one time a box of 10 would cost...
Well, it's almost Schwarzenegger. It's gonna cost a fortune.
I read one time that... the cigars actually cost $4,000 a box for a box of 10.
Gosh.
He loved them so much he ended up buying 10 boxes in one go. So you got third reaction, and we're not even up to 10 minutes yet. And then what happened was...
I can't say that I envy you because I don't. All that stuff going into your body.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, you can't. No, you can't inhale cigar smoke.
I don't know. I've never smoked in my life.
You cannot inhale it. If you do.
Yeah, I understand.
So if you ever smoke a cigar, do not inhale.
I don't plan to smoke, bro, but thanks for the recommendation.
It's okay, just remember
Thanks for the prescription, Dr. Riley. And okay, so as we moving into the movie, so obviously you've got Danko who goes over to the US to track down a criminal that's gotten away. And this time round you have James Belushi, he was also always known for his comedic background. His brother was the star of the Blues Brothers, John Belushi. And John Belushi obviously passed away a long time ago. And these two cops have to basically put their... Danko's gone over to the US to extradite him, to bring him back to Russia to stand trial for the murders he's committed. and then obviously he's got no choice but to meet this guy, who's basically supposed to be just quote an escort.
And then he also has to be his babysitter.
Yeah, and he hates that. And then
yeah, because he actually says that in the film.
he says that a lot. I mean, he plays a good balance between these two, because if you look at it, you got the serious police officer from one end of the world, you got the comedic police officer from the other end of the world, and which is plays off really good chemistry between them. It's that perfect. It's like you mentioned in it. It's similar to how
Tango and Cash.
Yeah, it is similar to like Tango and Cash, isn't it? Because if you look at it, them two guys were completely polar opposites, but they
Brains
had no
versus
choice.
Bronze.
Yeah, this is the definition of that. I mean,
Brains versus Bronze.
but if you look at it, Danko's both. He's both brains and brawn.
Yeah.
This he's a bit more street smart, I would say.
Danko is a lot more street smart.
And so is Ritzik, who's played by James Belushi.
Yes.
Arthur Ritzik, what they called him.
But the thing is about Danko is he can be anything he wants. Street smart,
he doesn't care.
Just clever, brains bronze.
He barely smiles.
Yeah.
If you ever see him, he barely smiles in that
He just
movie.
kicks your ass.
He does, and especially in the first opening scene when you see
That's
him
what I was going to mention. Yeah.
in the Russian bathhouse, and you just see him in there, and he's like, he's in incredible
He's searching,
shape.
isn't he? He's searching
For that one, searching for a criminal he's looking for, and right away these two guys jump outside into the snow and they're having a fist fight, and they've only got towels wrapped around them and they're having a fist fight, and he's obviously he's showing his authority. Even when he's tackling the guy in the second scene, when you see him in the bar, and he's like,
that was a good scene. I
it
love that scene.
It was a pretty good scene.
Just walks in.
Because he doesn't need the police force backing him up. He is the police force himself.
He's the force, isn't he? He just walks in there.
Yeah. His nickname was Iron Jaws, and you can tell in that movie, especially that scene where they're telling him to hold that hot rock in his hand, and he just loses it and just hits the guy through the
smashes
windscreen.
it right through the window.
Through the window. And so you have that scene there as well, and then you've got, and believe it or not, how they prepared for this movie was, the film crew, they applied for a permit to film in the Red Square of Moscow.
Oh, you needed to.
And obviously the application was denied, but then they had to do a sneak film. They had to do like a sneak film around that centre.
Whoa.
And they dressed up Arnold Schwarzenegger in the uniform and filmed him.
They went in there illegally.
Pardon?
They went in there illegally.
I don't know. I think so, yeah. But they just kind of filmed it in there and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, and then that's what happened and everything. So people kind of knew who Arnold was. Obviously.
So that must have been very, very...
challenging.
You had to be very inconspicuous, didn't you? Because obviously, everybody was like, hey, it's Arnold. But they would have had to dress him up really well for people.
And it was in the... one of those uniforms, the police uniform, they had to dress him up in.
But he still had to show his face.
Yeah, you had to.
How would they get away with it?
It was just one of them things you had to do, because obviously people in the crowds would come and say hello to me, and he'd shake their hand to them nicely and be like, all right, that's fine. You come to meet me. I've got no problem with that.
People usually hang around film sets anyway to meet the stars. So it's going to happen, isn't it?
They do. And obviously Arnold spent 3 months learning to speak fluent Russian. And one thing I noticed in that movie, which was really good, you barely hear the Austrian accent. You hear a proper Russian accent out of him, don't you? So obviously, when it comes to preparation for roles like that, the accent dialect, you have to know what vowels to drop, what vowels you need to put in and everything. Because they did the same thing with Dolph Lundgren when he played Ivan Drago in Rocky IV. He had to have like that, the high top chin, that whole Soviet
just
presence.
the same as Arnie in that. He was just back straight, shoulders back, chin back.
The chiseled jawline and everything, and obviously he had
no sense of emotion in that face.
No, it was
just pure tense.
Pure tense. And then also James Belushi spent 2 weeks working at a Chicago police district headquarters to kind of get the feeling of how a police officer would work, how they would live, how they interact with other people. And then you see that as well when that scene where Ritzik's playing the chessboard, and Danko walks in and goes,
yeah, I love this part.
Not king. Wrong move. Use this move instead. And he's like, thank you, Commandant. I don't need your help. And he just smiles there. He's like, I know what I'm doing here. I like that little grin on. That's some good piece of acting by Arnold there. He's got that little grin there.
Yeah, he's
like, I know what I'm doing here. You don't worry about it. And one other thing that cracked me up that made me laugh, was, you know, the scene where he goes in to meet the police commander, and even the police commander saying to the secretary, "Show this guy a bit of respect."
Yeah.
And what was funny was when the commanders had like heart problems, and he said, "You need to learn to relax. You need to do this." And he asked him, "How do you Soviets deal with the stress and tension?" He's like,
with this part.
and he's like, "Vodka,
Vodka.
vodka."
And the commander's like that. Oh,
that's it. Just one thing.
Okay.
And just one thing, vodka. And also Walter Hill, who's actually known for the movies, 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy. He did another 48 Hours, again with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. He also did the movie Bullet to the Head with Sylvester Stallone and Jason Momoa. This was a few years,
Jason Momoa was involved, so it's going to be a few years later.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Definitely a few years
It's
later.
a lot younger than these guys.
Definitely. And so basically, Walter Hill always, for so many years, wanted to work with Schwarzenegger, but they couldn't find the right script to these two guys to work together. And then they came across Red Heat, and they said, "Right, fine, let's just do this movie. I want to show some good stuff as well, not just always having to show bad stuff." And yeah, it made it happen. And the funny thing is,
match made in heaven, really.
It was. And Walter Hill said to Arnold before the filming started, he goes, "Arnold, you're too muscular." He goes, "You're too massive." Because obviously coming back from the Mr. Olympia background, coming from
he's not going to lose that mass, is he?
He said he was asked to lose 10 pounds of mass for that role, but James Belushi had to gain 10 pounds.
Oh man, he was already quite big.
The funny thing was on set, every day Arnold would see him and goes, "You're too skinny." Arnold would say that to him, "You're too skinny, Jim." He'd be like, "Jim, come over here, have some cookies." And he's like, "They're freshly made. Finish the whole tray." And that's why, have you noticed another scene when they're stalking the killer's wife? They're waiting for her outside. And he goes to him, "I'm going to go get something. Don't worry, I'm going to get you something. I'm going to go get some food. Something healthy from all food groups." And he goes, "Burgers, fries, coffee, and donuts." And then he goes, "Give me key to car." He goes, "What, you don't like onions?" that's just like a good, that was like a good, perfect comedic. I really liked that part. And then the other scene was, what was quite funny was when one good thing James Belushi said about Arnold once, I watched an interview with him years later when they're doing a documentary on Schwarzenegger, and they were talking about what was it like working with him. He goes, at that time his brother died, John Belushi, of an accidental drug overdose. And he goes, on the set, Arnold was like my big brother to me. He was like 40 years old when he did that movie, Red Heat. Yeah, Schwarzenegger.
How old was James Belushi?
I think he was like quite a few years younger, probably mid-30s, I would say. But yeah, it worked quite well there as well.
That, doesn't it?
Yeah. Another thing which was quite interesting. I think Arnold did really good acting in this movie. He wasn't just an action star. He did pretty good acting in it because he's always known for the action. Obviously, the fist fights.
He showed his versatility.
He did. I mean, what was quite interesting was when he did this movie, you can see more of an actor in Arnold. He's not the tough guy with the comedic lines, like he did in Predator.
Well, the thing is, in these other films, he didn't have many lines.
Yeah.
He just had his bulk, his action scenes. He had one-liners here and there, like he did in Terminator.
Yeah, definitely.
But in this, he had complete dialogue. He had complete, paragraphs to say and comedic comebacks to say, But in the others, he was like one-liners that you remember.
Yeah.
But it wasn't full-on dialogue, was it?
No,
it was just "Hi, I am Arnold," that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm the Terminator.
Yeah, I am the Terminator.
That's a good impression. And then, so what he said was he wanted to make him more Walter Hill. He goes, he deliberately chose to tone down Arnold's persona, because in all the other movies, if you look at Arnold, he's also got the comedic one-liners, like from the movie Predator when he throws that machete to the guy and he sticks to the wood and goes, "Stick around." And even when he goes, even when he says, when he does "I'll be back," if you notice that "I'll be back," he goes, he wanted to get rid of all the one-liners. He wanted him to be completely realistic. So he says, less prone to wisecracks. Walter Hill's exact words were, "I had confidence in him as an actor. I didn't want him to throw a Volkswagen over a building. Arnold has the ability to communicate with that cuts through cultures and countries. they just love to see this guy win, which is true. Everybody did it. Back in the 80s, Arnold was like one of the biggest things ever. You saw him everywhere, on magazines, in interviews, in movies. You saw him and Stallone.
Those were neck and neck.
I think between the two of them, Stallone definitely was the better actor. He was able to show emotions.
Rambo. I haven't seen it yet, but what Rambo was all about was an ex-soldier struggling with PTSD.
Yeah, he was. And if
you need a lot of acting skills to be playing something like that.
Of course you did. You had Stallone. The one thing I always liked about Stallone was he always kind of like he did kind of similar method acting.
He also wrote and directed a lot of films as well.
He still does, even till today.
Yeah, exactly. So he was better all round than Arnold for me.
I mean, one good movie I like Arnold doing some acting in, even though this was comedy, Twins. He never carries a gun in that. He's kind of like the tall, innocent, gentle giant in that movie.
Or Junior.
Yeah.
I know it was a weird film, but still, it was comedy.
To be honest, I haven't even seen it properly.
I have. Not as good as Twins, because obviously him and Danny DeVito are
great. They were a great team up.
They're a great duo, aren't they? They're a great duo.
Yeah, they've actually done. I think they've done like 3 movies together.
What's the third one?
The third one was, believe it or not, Last Action Hero. But Danny DeVito does the voice of the animated cat in that movie.
Oh God!
Yeah, which was quite funny because of the when you hear it, it's like, all right, that's Danny DeVito, definitely. There are certain actors whose voices you can pick up instantly.
Yeah, he's got a distinctive voice, doesn't he?
Danny DeVito, bless him, he's definitely one of those actors who fits that profile to a T. And
coming from someone who was very disadvantaged, the way.
Because he's not.
He's not the typical great looking A-list superstar that you see that makes the screen look
but great. He's a terrific actor.
But his acting, he had to work so hard to get where he is, because obviously people look more like exterior than interior, don't they?
That is true.
Which is a shame, but that's what Hollywood's all about. You got the good looking A-list superstar that has the name on top of the film title.
Yeah, like Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
I mean, Brad Pitt's a terrific actor.
Clooney.
Yeah, they're both great actors. They're not just,
Brad Pitt's better.
Yeah, I think. No, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they're neck and neck. I would say. I mean, because they made a great team together in the Oceans trilogy.
Yeah.
They made a terrific team in that.
And obviously you got Johnny Depp, Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and obviously in them days, Stallone was basically up for practically every role. Which I don't want to ruin it now. I'm gonna talk about it when we do the rivalry topic.
All right. Okay.
Deal. So everybody's heard me say that.
I can guess what you're going to say. One of them was meant for one of the other's roles, but the other one got chosen instead.
Again, I don't want to ruin it for you.
I can get that. I think I'm right.
You are right.
Yes.
So I'm not going to do it yet.
All right. Okay.
So and also, you know the scene where they go into the prison to talk about when they're talking to the guy who's, when Arnold and the other guy are talking together, the Elijah. I think that was his name, Abdul Elijah. So yeah, the character Abdul Elijah, who's in prison, the black guy with the sunglasses.
Yep, the blind guy.
Yeah, the blind guy, and he for that prison cell. So for the Joliet prison, 200 real inmates were used as extras.
Ooh.
200, and they said, and obviously that was an interesting scene. Was what was quite interesting was. Walter Hill conveyed this idea because him and Arnold had long to work, and this is me reading off this, and off IMDb. And so him and Schwarzenegger had wanted to work for so many years. I mean, you can't blame him. Walter Hill was a great director. Arnold was one of the biggest action stars there.
Yeah, he was.
And he goes, he didn't just want to do sci-fi, and it's tough to use Arnold credibly in an American concept because of the accent. It was hard in a way for Arnold to drop that accent sometimes because he's famous for it, the Austrian accent.
Yeah, it's such a strong accent. So
it's a very strong accent.
To lose that accent anyway.
Yeah, I mean, but you had guys like Dolph Lundgren who had the Swedish accent, but it's kind of, I think it would say it's gone now.
Nice.
It's kind of,
you can still hear it.
You can still hear some American accent because he's been in America for over 30 years now, hasn't he, Dolph?
Yeah.
And he just basically. Going back to this, he says he wanted to do the traditional John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, larger-than-life movie with Arnold. And he goes, you then ask the question, will the American audience accept a unapologetic Soviet hero somebody who will not defect at the end of the movie. Yeah, because if you look at it this way, the other scene where they're talking to the drug dealer in the prison after Ritzik's partner's been killed, and what that was a good funny scene was you know when Danko's getting dressed and he's changing into the regular suit, and Ritzik comes in and he goes, "What, have you retired your uniform?" He goes, "I now work undercover." He goes, "You look like you look like Gumby." I kept trying to find out who's this Gumby person that he keeps
I don't know who that is.
It was just funny how he said it, because again, James Belushi, he's very well known for his comedic timing and his comedic backgrounds and everything like that. And
like Gumby.
Yeah, it was.
Arnie's reaction in that was like, "Who was that?"
Like this other scene where he saved his life from getting killed, and he covers for Ritzik as well, doesn't he? When he brings that really big handgun with him through customs, and he goes, "How did you get that past customs?" "Diplomatic immunity." Yeah. And
yes.
he goes, "Yeah, that restores my faith in her and airport security and all that stuff." And what was quite funny was, like I said, what was quite funny was the scene where he's saved his life, and the police commander goes, "I want your piece." He goes, "What about Ritzik?" He goes, "He didn't know about my gun. I just pulled that in front of him. It's covered for him."
Yes.
And then he's kind of built. Then Ritzik's kind of like built the trust with him right there and then.
You see, like I said, it's great chemistry, but you also, because of that, you actually see the relationship building between the two of them.
Yeah,
throughout the film, and it's great to see. It is really good to see.
Yeah, it is true because of the fact that, you know, I mean, they are both. James Belushi, he's a pretty good actor. He's pretty. He did that show called According to Jim, where he's quite.
That was later on in his career.
Yeah, but it was quite good. But Arnold.
He also did that film with the dog, Canine.
That was a funny movie.
I love that.
We need to review.
I was fixated on that film as a kid.
I'll tell you a funny story. To be honest with you, growing up after seeing that movie, I wanted to be a police officer and I wanted my partner to be a dog. I'm guilty. But yeah,
who doesn't want a German Shepherd anyway?
That is true. Yeah, cool. That is true. And then also there was a scene that was filmed in the prison, but it was deleted. It was a scene where Danko has to prove himself as a strong man against all the inmates in there, and basically it was lifting weights, like who could lift the heaviest, who could bench press the most, who could squat press the most, and then he had to have a fist fight with one of the gang members in order to talk to the leader. And if he'd won, he'd get to talk. If he didn't know, "I don't want to speak to you, get lost."
Okay.
Unfortunately, they deleted that scene.
Why did they delete it?
I don't know, because there was some shots. I think they said, as they usually say, you know, you slow down the
plot.
You slow down the plot. It doesn't.
I can see why.
It doesn't.
It was pointless.
Yeah, it was pointless. In other words,
it was just showing another form of Arnie's muscle mass and stuff like that, just to show off. Really.
In a way, it was. Yeah,
that's how it would have looked like, and I think it was a point of Arnie going back to previous characters.
Yeah.
And they didn't want Arnie to go back.
They needed an actor.
Yeah, exactly. So, and they got that with the other scene that they put in there instead.
Yeah, definitely. And another good thing was, another good thing was, you know, after what was really funny, what was another good funny scene in that was, you know, when the Ritzik and you have Hobbs, played by Lawrence Fishburne, terrific actor, who went on to play Morpheus in the Matrix movies, and you had the other guy in there who's Ritzik's partner. And when they go to do the drug bust, and then he goes and they have the guy firing the shotgun, and he's downstairs, and then he just jumps up and goes, "Freeze!" He goes, "You look like Marvin Hagler. I lost money on it." The reason why they did that, it was a reference to a boxing match that took place in '87. And the year before that movie was released, it was between Marvin Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard. And both fighters fought well, and at the end of the 12 match, Hagler thought he was the winner. However, he was awarded Leonard was awarded the victory in a split decision. Yeah, so that's why they kind of brought. That's why he said, "Oh, I lost money on Hagler and all that stuff." It was quite a funny. It was quite a funny scene and everything like that. And then they also asked, what was another good bit of acting, which showed the showed these two guys getting on with each other. The scene in the coffee shop, where Ritzit's just going through all the reports and everything, and then you have Danko sitting there eating French fries for probably the first time in his life.
He looks like he's enjoying it, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he's taking it
in
slowly.
his own way.
He's taking it slowly, as you can see, and then they're talking to each other, and they were like, "Oh, are you married?" And he goes, "No." "Girlfriend?" "No." "Ever?" "Of course." And then he's like, "Of course you are. Do you think I'm?"
It's like, what do you think I am?
And he goes, "Yeah." And then they're like,
"Look at me."
And they were yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's like saying, "Who could not go out with it?" The funny thing is, now that you mentioned it, there was an interview I watched with Arnold when I was again doing a bit of research on this. Arnold goes, as he was growing up, he looked at himself in the mirror, obviously lifting weights, loving bodybuilding, and he goes, "One time I looked in the mirror and I looked at my body and I said, this is sick. This man is truly an international stud." He just said that about himself. He goes, "That's you're referring to what you just said, innit?" I mean, he's like,
look at me.
Yeah, look
you
at
would
me.
not.
And then what was quite funny was there was some good acting between them two when Arnold's kind of opening up to Ritzik, but Danko's opening up to Ritzik, and he's like,
and that's when the relationship is truly formed. Because
Yeah.
you wouldn't expect Danko to just purely open himself up like that. He's, he looks like one of those people that are always a closed book.
Quiet. And they're kind of similar to when he says in the other bit in the movie, which I just remembered, when Ritzik asked him, and when he's put the new suit on, and he goes, "That suit's not going to explode, is it?" And he goes, "I think you'll surf." "I think you'll surf." And but that was a really good scene, going back to the coffee shop when they were talking about the opening up, and Ritzik just kind of keeps it a bit quiet when Danko goes about his grandparents, about his siblings. He goes, he has no siblings. My father died during the war. My mother was a nurse. She's been gone for so many years. I just dedicate myself to my job. And he's like, "What about you?" He goes, "Yeah, I've got one sister. I'm divorced. My father was a police officer as well." And they found that common ground. Both their fathers were like, police officers and everything. And they did kind of find that common ground to the
It's respect.
It is respect.
International respect, because it's the same career.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's like
the law's enforced wherever you go.
Exactly. So it doesn't matter what job you do.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll give you an example. When I'm at work and I come across another healthcare assistant, right, we both just like nod at each other as if to say, "Yeah, have a good shift. I know it's hard, but try and have a good shift."
Yeah, exactly.
It's like with a copper, you pass a copper. Even obviously in the UK, it's like when you see bus drivers nodding at each other and waving.
Tram drivers do that as well.
Exactly the way.
Going past
have a good shift, my friend. Have a good shift.
Yeah, I see that every time I'm on a tram in another city.
Yeah.
And you see that happening sometimes. It's quite a nice gesture. It's sorry, not quite. It is a nice gesture.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's just people getting on with each
So
other.
it comes back with Danko and
Ritzik.
It's just like, we both. It doesn't matter where you come from. You may come from the USSR, I may come from the USA.
Yeah.
But you're still a police officer, and I have huge amounts of respect for you.
What was it? Now that you mentioned it, it was that other scene when they're talking about when they're trying to question that guy who kind of set up Ritzik's partner to get killed. And he goes, "There was supposed to be a drug bust. You were supposed to tell us this, and now Gallagher's dead because of the information you get me." And before they go into that room, and Ritzik's trying to talk to him about the Human Rights Act and everything. And when he goes, "In this country, even scumbags have rights," which means there's something called the Miranda Act, which means you can't even touch his ass. And then he goes, "I do not want to touch his ass. I want to make him talk." And then he opens the door and he just slams him right on the table. He's like, "What are you doing? I just told you outside. Don't touch this guy."
I love it when he says, "Is Miranda here?" And he's like, "No, Miranda. Yes, Miranda's here."
Yeah, Miranda is here. And yes, Miranda. Yeah, that was another.
Yes, Miranda's here.
And then when he's talking, then he's questioning Ritzik's police tactics when he's like giving him the bribe. He's actually put a little bit of drug, he goes, "Oh, you set me up, I'm going to sue you, do this." He's like, "I ain't telling you anything." And then Danko's just slamming him against the door and he's like nearly breaking the guy's hand. He goes, "Where's this guy?" I went there. He goes, "Men are dead because of you," and all that stuff. And then Ritzik's on the way out going, "You got to watch these doors, they slam quite hard." And then at the end, when they're questioning Danko about his methods, he goes, "That's a lie. He had his hand trapped in the door. Danko saw it." And like he's covered for Danko, and Danko covers for him in return, like about the handgun.
Yeah.
And what was
That's
another?
one big hefty handgun as well, isn't it?
Well, think about it. If you gave Ritzit's handgun to Danko, it looks stupid.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
Because it doesn't match Arnold's. It doesn't match Arnold's persona. No. He had to be the bigger gun.
Yeah, yeah. Because he's the bigger guy.
He's the bigger guy. It's like even when you see him in other movies, like even in Commando, there was one funny scene in that
minigun he has.
In Terminator 2.
Yeah, and Commando. Those guns.
No, that wasn't a minigun. That wasn't a minigun he carried. He carried the same similar one to what Rambo fires in Rambo 2.
Oh, it was similar.
It was that. But then again, you're quite right because it is attached to a helicopter.
Yeah.
And I think I definitely think Stallone looked better with that gun.
He did. He had the long hair as well, didn't he?
And the legendary bandana.
Yeah.
Can't wait to talk about Rambo.
I need to watch it.
You better.
Yeah, no, I will because I need to.
Don't push it.
No,
don't push it.
Is that what he says, isn't it?
I'll give you a war you won't believe.
He
says that, but I don't want to ruin that scene for you. But that's just how it happens. Yeah. So going back to this movie here, I mean, what was quite interesting was afterwards when they've built that respect for each other, and then they've gone to and then he's gone to drop him off to the hotel room. He goes, "Listen, I'm going to be back in a few hours. Just grab a shower, get a bit of sleep, and I'll come back and see you soon." And before you know it,
there's that tip of a hotel.
Yeah, he chose that hotel himself, and they wanted to put him in a better place. And he goes, "No, take me to Garvin," and all that stuff. And then
there was a reason, no way.
Yeah, what was quite funny was when the scene where Ritzik in the beginning they meet each other. And he goes, "How do you speak such good English?" And he goes, "Army." He goes, "One of the things that we had to learn was probably multiple languages, isn't it?" Mm-hmm. And then
when you're working on the cover,
yeah, you have to, isn't it? In a way.
Yeah, yeah, it was a cell, a super cell.
Yeah, definitely. And then you show
a spy or whatever.
Definitely, I agree with you. And what was quite funny was you had the other thing as well when you were talking about the scene where you have when Ritzik and Danko are tailing that girl, and she set them both up, and you have the gang members there with the handguns, and he goes, "A Chicago cop never relinquishes his firearm," and they've all chained all the weapons. Aiming, and goes, "Here, take it, take it."
I love that
part. I loved all the arguments with Ritzik and Danko in the car. It was quite funny. Danko's just sitting there quietly. He goes, "Take me here." And he's like, Ritzik wants to hit him, but if he hits Danko's going to throw him through the window. He's definitely going to throw the guy through the window, and he's capable of doing it.
You throw to USSR, what are you talking about? Throw what?
Yeah. What was quite funny was, the scene where, what was that scene where, it's just slipping my mind. It'll come back to me. And the scene. Okay, now it's just come back. The scene after they've met the girl who's becomes the wife of the drug dealer he's chasing, and he goes to him, "Oh, we'll wait outside. I'll go get the food." He goes, "Give me a car." He goes, "No, you crashed that. I'll be filling out reports till I retirement." He goes, "All right, fine, but honk if you hear something. Give me the key." And you have that guy coming in, like, he goes, "Move your car, I'll smash it with a baseball bat." He's like, and he's like, "I do not understand.
I live here."
And he goes, "I live right up there." He goes, "Move." He goes, "Have you ever heard of Miranda?" "Never heard of her."
He just slams his head on the...
No, he just punches it.
Yeah, he did.
And he just... It was funny back in the 80s, those sound effects. He goes, "Dish," and he goes, "Huligani." then Ritzik comes in. He's seen the guy lying on the ground, and he gets in the car and goes, "Everything okay?" "Yes, fine." "What about that guy lying on the road?" "He lives here." "Okay."
Yes, drive off.
He just leaves him. And then he's put the coffee cup on top.
He's like...
And he drives the car and it burns him.
It's like, disco!
He was like burning, screaming and everything like that, which was quite good comedic timing. Danko doesn't care what he's just done.
Yeah.
He's just doing the job.
What do you say? It looks like I've pissed myself.
Yeah, when he says it, it looked like I just peed in my pants, which was quite funny. And then moving on to the he goes, so moving on to another thing as well. The scene where we had the legendary bus chase.
Yep, remember that.
Now the reasons why they chose that was because they said that Walter Hill, they said, all right, why can't you use a car instead? It'd be quicker. He goes, look at the size of Arnold. Does he look well in a car chase? So they said, all right, we'll do a bus chase instead. And then he's smashing through everything, and then you see Ritzik going, where did you learn how to drive a bus? Army. And he's like still driving the lines. And, you know, even I'll tell you a funny story was all that time I kept thinking, because obviously Arnold was famous for playing the Terminator, his most famous role. What was quite funny was I used to kept thinking for so many years that maybe there is a metal endoskeleton underneath this big dude. I was that naive.
I thought the same thing.
You know what gave it away? The ending after the bus crash. You see that, and you see a piece of metal hanging in Danko's forehead. I kept thinking, oh, he is a Terminator. I think that was kind of paying homage to the Terminator, because this was before Terminator 2 came along.
Yeah.
Way before Terminator.
Perhaps that was a slight hint
of what was due to come. No, what had happened and what is due to come, because then you had that metal plate, and then what was quite funny was at the end when he's going to arrest Victor.
This is where the T900's been all this time.
T800.
T800.
Well, you're close.
Damn it.
You're close.
I get that wrong.
You're quite close. And then you had the... and then what you had was quite funny was when you had the... when you had them two moving up towards one another. And then he goes, you stay here, I finish it. And goes, Ritzik's like, after cut and bruised and everything, he's like, oh, this whole thing's very Russian for me. Go do what you're doing and everything. He goes, Gumby, honk if you hear anything. Like, he had great comedic timing compared to Arnold's, comparing him with Arnold.
Arnold was subtle.
Yes.
And
James
Belushi was in your face, but in a good way.
Yeah, he was.
You know, because sometimes in your face can be just, is he not funny? Stop it. But in this, he was like really, everything he said, all his mannerisms, all his body language, they're both polar opposites, but they suited each other so well, didn't they?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was what was a great thing about it. When you have those two actors or characters who are completely opposite. One's completely serious and by the book. One is just a loose cannon who just gets the job done. A lot of police movies back in the 80s resembled that. You had Tango and Cash, you had Red Heat, then you had Lethal Weapon. You also had a few of the Dirty Harry movies with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And Clint Eastwood, without a doubt, was the one of the original action stars. He was. You had him. You had Charles Bronson. You had James. You had Clint Eastwood and Charles Bronson. You had Steve McQueen, and those guys were just absolute legends, and they still are even till today. I mean, Eastwood is in his 90s, but he's still doing well.
Yeah, man. He
feels lucky, punk.
Do you feel lucky?
Yeah, he definitely does. I mean,
he's a lucky man. 90 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Gran Torino, get off my lawn.
That was one of the best movies he ever
Baby.
done. They were all absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. And so what was quite interesting was at the end of towards the movie when you see the because what was funny, the reason why Arnold mentioned the going back to the diner scene, I just found something here I'd like to share as well. Going back to that diner scene where Ritz is asking, Danko tells him his father was gone for like 11 years. In real life, Arnold's father he passed away in 1972 and was a police chief and a military police officer. So that did kind of resemble into that.
So he could actually relate to that and build on that himself, can't he?
Definitely.
Because when you know something, you know how it feels, and when you know how it feels, you can pursue that kind of reaction in the actual filming of that film. Yeah,
you definitely can.
Well, there you go.
Which was quite interesting as well. And one of the other good things I liked about Red Heat was it was not just the comedic banter and everything, but they were kind of like on the same page, but they just refused to believe it. Again, similar to Tango and Cash.
Yeah. They was made for each other, but they didn't want to realize that it was made for each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they hated each other. They didn't like each other.
But it was a good movie to watch at the time, and obviously it sometimes still is a pretty good movie to watch.
I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, and then you had the original plan was they were going to do a sequel to Red Heat.
Yeah, Didn't need it.
No, what the sequel was Ritzik would have flown over to Moscow to meet Danko after so many years to catch another criminal.
Oh, well, I mean...
Because then it would have been quite interesting to see the change between them two. How is Ritzik going to stay in Russia compared to how Danko was in the US?
That would have been a really good...
It would have been a really good sequel.
It would have been just 2 films, because obviously they would have run out of ideas after 2.
Yeah.
It's pointless. I mean, what can they do after that? Both of them go visit Hawaii.
I think we're safe here. Which would have been proper good as well. And then
it would have been a good film though. I would have liked that.
Yeah. I mean, what's another good transition? What's another good trait about Danko was, in the scene in the hospital where he's just killed that hitman who killed the criminal he was after. And he goes to, and then he sees that woman running through the girl running through to get away, and he stops her and he goes, "Oh, you don't understand what you're doing. Victor's going to kill you eventually." He goes, "What shall I do?" You
see the humility pouring out of him, don't you?
He goes, "Go on, get out of here." He lets her go, and then Ritzik's asking why. She goes, "She just vanished." He goes, "He chased her, but she vanished."
Yeah, yes. But he didn't believe him. He didn't believe him, did he?
Yeah, and then he's like, "Nice job, Gombe. Thank you. I wasn't complimenting. I know." I know.
So he knows him already.
Yeah. I mean, another good character I liked in that movie was Lawrence Fishburne's Hobbs. He knows in a way Danko's withholding information. He's refusing to share it. And he's like saying, "Look, I can't leave this country without Victor. So I need cooperation." He says that in that scene as well. And then you had and then you also had him noticing that as well, that we're gonna, after that they found the dead girl, as you're gonna go back to Russia and you're stuck behind a desk for the rest of your career. And Ritzik's like he swears at him and goes, "Excuse me, I'll see you at the office." But yeah, I mean, it was a good movie to watch at the time. And even now, because there was no special effects, there was no CGI, no wire work. It was raw and authentic.
Yes, it was honest.
Yeah,
there was no over the top explosion. Yeah. They didn't need any of that to entertain you.
They didn't.
You had the chemistry. I think that's what the 80s was so special, because it was all about the chemistry and all about the action, but there was no fireworks. It was all pure acting.
Raw and authentic.
Yeah, raw and authentic acting, honesty and everything, just a good story.
Yeah.
But I think that's the difference between now and then.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with that.
Now there's a lot of fireworks to distract you from
what they're actually talking about.
Exactly, but then it was just pure chemistry, pure story, like you said. Yeah. Authenticity.
That's what you need, and it lacks that in this day and age as well.
It does.
Yeah, unfortunately, it does. Yeah, but in all honesty, Red Heat, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give it?
I will give it 7.5.
Okay, I'll probably give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, that's great.
8 out of 10. It was a good movie where you could finally see a actor in that who basically who's known for one type of role, but he's not playing that type of role this time around. You're expecting something different, which was good. It took the audience by surprise, seeing Arnold
move away from Commando, move away from Terminator, move away from Raw Deal, just move away from all the things that you're used to seeing with him.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he comes out and goes, "Hey, look at me, I can actually act."
Yeah, I can.
He acted, don't get me wrong, he acted in all the other films, obviously.
Yeah.
But it came to the point where it looked like he was playing himself.
In a way, but one movie where he showed a lot of fear, and I'll be honest with you, was the original Predator. Because think about it, Arnold's taking on something that's not of this planet.
Yes.
And then you have, which I can't wait to talk about. I've got so much behind the scenes.
Yeah, you got something up your sleeve.
Yeah, it's called a bracelet and a watch. But that was quite good about that movie as well, where you see somebody being something different for a change. It's like, for example, you saw Stallone in the 80s. He was doing a mixture of everything from action to drama to comedy, even singing. I do not want to touch that movie Rhinestone. I think Stallone would hate me if he ever watched it. He says that was one of the movies he regretted making, Rhinestone. Because you know who his co-star was in the movie?
No.
Dolly Parton.
Oh
yeah.
Oh wait, you showed me.
Yes, I did. Which is quite funny. When I watched it for the very first
We've
time...
got to review that. We've got to do that.
Okay, done. Alright, fine. Everybody's heard it, and we're going to definitely review Rhinestone. And we're going to talk about why on God's earth did Stallone ever choose that movie, Rhinestone.
Perhaps he just wanted to do what Arnie did and play something completely different. You know?
Yeah.
But I've seen a few clips and I'm like, why? Why did you do Why?
It was just, I don't know, nobody knows.
It was a WTF moment, that's for sure.
It was like, what were you thinking?
It was like, what were you thinking moment. And it was a moment to forget for him, I think.
I think, yeah, definitely.
But he has nightmares about that. No! Oh, it's a dream. Wait a minute, it wasn't a dream, I actually did that.
It actually happened, yeah.
Oh, no.
I think that, the worst, we'll do one each, right? What is the worst movie you think Stallone's ever done? To me, it is Rhinestone.
Oh, I think I'll choose Rhinestone as well.
Okay,
Right.
Worst movie Arnold's ever done?
Oh, gosh.
I've already chosen mine.
Alright, you go.
Batman and Robin. Yes. He has so much cheesy one-liners in that movie.
I think I'll go for that as well.
Yeah, okay, done. One each.
It was a bad film. George Clooney said it himself. He said he ruined the Batman movie.
He actually said he paid people money back for having to watch that movie.
It was a really bad film.
Yeah.
Freeze.
Mr. Freeze, yeah, Victor Freeze, yeah.
Bless him. You know what? He did what he could.
Yeah, he definitely could,
You only can play what you get to play. It's just a terrible film.
We're never reviewing that.
90s Batmans were awful.
80s Batmans were better. No, actually, no. Michael Keaton, when he did Batman.
That was late.
Batman Returns was actually done in 92.
Yeah, but mid to late Batman films were dreadful. They were really... Batman Forever was... Oh, man, that was a terrible
It was still better than Batman and Robin, hands down.
It was.
The only thing I liked about Batman Forever was seeing Robin for the very first time.
Yeah, it was good.
That was it. But yeah, so...
Off topic,
yes, we're back now. We're back. All right, and so in all honesty...
It related though, Arnie was in it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so you're not off topic.
Not really off topic.
Yeah. But in all honesty, Arnold worked well with certain actors in that movie. He worked well with James Belushi. He worked well with Lawrence Fishburne. Even with Peter Boyle, who played the Commando. For those who do not know who Peter Boyle was, he went on to play Frank in the movie. In the TV series, Everybody Loves Raymond. That was his father in that movie. Yeah, but in the TV series, that's what he became famous for.
It's a good TV series.
Yeah. Well, all right, so that concludes today's podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had a great time. And next week we're going to be concluding the trilogy of the Karate Kid, and we're just talking about Ralph Macchio's Daniel's trilogy, and we don't want to touch base on part 4. No, I can tell by that expression. No part 4 for me.
No.
But yeah, all right. So thank you very much, Aiden, for your time. It was always a pleasure working with you.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks, brother. And definitely we'll see you soon. Also, everybody, please remember to follow us on Instagram. Also, please give TeeMedia Productions a follow as well. Also, The Wanderers, a big shout out to those guys. And because without those guys, we wouldn't have the music composed.
No, of course not.
We wouldn't have that.
Of course
and
subscribe to this YouTube channel
as
well,
please.
And click on the notification bell, because without that,
you won't know what's
how
going
are you
on.
supposed to know that we've released a new video?
Yeah, you won't know what's going on,
exactly.
For sure. But as always, 80s rocked.
They do rock.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.